Hello, Steeler Nation, and welcome to your Steeler Nation podcast, part of the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network and sponsored by Total Sports Enterprises. I'm your host, G. Stryker, and today I am joined by fellow writer and student of film study for SteelerNation.com, Bill Washinski. Bill, how you doing, my friend? It's been a while. How's Tampa weather treating you down there in Florida?
It's phenomenal. Of course,
Nice.
Florida. It's not cold. Went to Pittsburgh this weekend for the game. That was cold. Glad to get back.
Nice. So one thing I know we've been chatting back and forth, and you've brought up some interesting comparisons from the current team to the 84 to 89 team. So some of us old heads that know these teams are, pretty excited to at least tell the rest of Steeler Nation, possibly some younger fans of Steeler Nation, how those teams compare.
Well, the first thing is, those teams were, they weren't good, but they weren't bad either. And we're kind of like that right now too. We were very limited at quarterback in the 80s, as you remember and I remember.
Right.
A lot of people have no memory of how bad we were at quarterback. Mm-hmm. But if you ever want to see a master class on how a team should, when they're a little bit more limited and playing against somebody better, go on YouTube and look up the Steelers. There's 49ers in 1984. Chuck Noble on a master class about beating a team better, because Joe Montana was just standing on the sideline and we just ran time off the clock as much as possible. Caught some lucky breaks during the game, as it has to be. Yeah. But they were the only team to beat the 49ers that first 15-1 season. And that team was there in the AFC. The team reached the AFC Championship. They didn't win more than 2 games in a row all year long.
Wow.
That was with Mark Malone, and we weren't.
Right. I remember him. I remember that year.
Frank Pollard and Walter Abercrombie running back.
Right.
They have Stallworth have a renaissance, and Lewis Lipson his rookie year.
Yep.
We got talent like that, and if not more. So when I look at that, and I look at the 89 team, that's last in the league in offense, by the way.
Right. Yeah.
0-2 to start the year, 92-10.
Right. Getting destroyed by the Bengals and then destroyed the following. Who beat them the following? Cincinnati? Was it
Browns and the Bengals? 51-0.
Yeah. Jeez. Yeah, I remember that.
But they never really beat anybody up by a lot of points, especially in 89. But one thing you just have to accept and embrace with this team, those two teams, that 89 team was a fraction of an eyelash from the AFC Championship and playing the Browns.
Right.
And they were in the AFC Championship, and they scored 28 points on the Dolphins. That's the most anybody did until the 49ers did.
Wow.
That year. So these 9-7 teams that got there get knocked on the door with Mark Malone and Bubby Brister.
Wow. Right.
Can you do better with Ben and in a one game? I think so. But you have to embrace two things. The games are going to be one ugly. Yeah. We're not going to have these. We do not have a margin for error. Or a large margin for error. So we're going to have to accept the fact that these games are going to give us all heart attacks, and they're not going to be pretty. We're not going to see 2017 Steelers where, at the end of the first half, a couple weeks ago, everybody's yelling up and screaming, how come we're not going down the field? I think Tomlin played perfectly when he just ran the clock out.
Right. Yeah, and that's a contrast, and that's something I try to tell to people. They're like, Tomlin's horrible at clock management. No, he's not. He's really not. And I remember watching the other game that week. It was the Cleveland-San Diego game. San Diego had the game won. All they had to do was kneel down 3 times and kick a field goal. But no, they ran a running play, and Cleveland drags the running back into the end zone. That's just stupid. You don't run any play whatsoever. The call is to kneel down to run out because Cleveland was completely out of timeouts. There was like a minute and a half left to go in the game. And that's the only way Cleveland could have had a chance to come back to win that game, or at least tried to win that game, is to allow them to
over.
Yeah.
I never seen that before in my life where a team dragged somebody in the end zone. So,
but you're not even going to line up. Like, that shouldn't even been a call. The call should not have been give the running back the football. The call should have been kneel down. And that's, if you're a coach and you win games, that's what you do, because you know that the game is locked if you kneel down.
And quite frankly, we saw that when we got the field goal the last week. What did it first play? Just ran it right, just fell out.
Center it up. You're done. Yep. And Ben kept it. It's not like there was a handoff, anything else like that.
Just ran it up.
Root to the middle of the field, lay down. Done. Yep.
They actually lost 3 yards, but they were well within Boswell's range.
So gosh.
That's negligible with him.
Yeah.
But that, you see, I think Tomlin is built to coach and win ugly. I think it's kind of his mantra, We go back to our strengths, our default whenever we go into the most pressure, Tomlin is not the most pretty win guy, but he does have that mantra from day one where he said, one more point than the other team.
Yeah.
So style points don't matter. It just feels like that's where he's best and most comfortable at. And this is where he's going to excel, is with ugly winning. So accept the fact, embrace the fact that we're going to win ugly.
Yep.
And we're going to lose some games. It's we're not going to go the perfect down the rest of the way.
You mean our offense isn't just going to figure it all out and run on everybody the rest of the season? That would be awesome.
Well, quite frankly, I think they are figuring it out.
They are starting to look better.
If not, bad calls are going to happen during the course of the year. We're going to get a couple our way that are going to balance out that Green Bay one, so you just don't complain about them. But the fact is that if that call does go our way, that game is Najee is getting yardage. They're running the ball.
Yeah.
So they just got to keep sticking with that and pray to God that he don't get hurt, because he really is that good. I think he's the best running back in the division already.
Yeah.
And if it was 19 or 2005, whatever, that dude would have went in the top 5. It's a different era.
You and I have been watching Steelers running backs, from, Franco on. I mean, obviously, like the tail end of Franco's career for me. And I have never seen a back, and this includes Le'Veon Bell, who's one of the most athletic running backs that I've ever seen. This includes Willie Parker, who's one of the fastest Steeler backs I've ever seen. This includes Jerome Bettis, who's one of the toughest Steeler running backs I've ever seen. And now we have a guy in Naji Harris that we're just starting to realize, like, this guy is freaking special. Like, he's able to manufacture yards when there's 2 people standing directly in front of him ready to tackle him. And what does he do? He does a spin move stiff arm and pushes one into the other while he goes around them and picks up 4 yards. I have never, ever seen a Steeler back do that. I've seen highlights of Jim Brown do that for the Cleveland Browns. I've seen highlights of Sweetness and Walter Payton doing that, or little Adrian Peterson too, with that size strength ratio. But Barry Sanders was more of that scat guy. He was a guy you couldn't tackle in flag football, let alone get a hand near him. No. But this guy's doing it with power. He's doing it with agility. He's doing it with strength, and he's comboing all of these things up in a way that I've never seen a Steeler running back do before.
Yeah, and this is what I said during the draft. You recall, we looking for a guy who, he's going to have to manufacture and beat some tackles himself, because we knew that the offensive line was not going to be blowing open holes for him like the 2017, 2014 group,
Right.
It wasn't going to happen. So you needed somebody that could beat somebody one-on-one, and he's more than doing that.
Right.
And in the film that I can watch, because, as we were just saying, Game Pass is unwatchable. It's brutal. But a lot of times teams are paying a lot of respect to him no matter what.
That's what I noticed.
On the fake with the run to Ebron for the touchdown.
Yeah.
Against the Raiders, I watched a play where every single player on the Raiders, except for one, was on the other side of the field on a fake pitch.
Mm.
And it was a timing route that Deontay Johnson caught for a first down. But that's that's where Matt Cannon needs to look, is the Chase Claypool was going up in the middle, hold up his hands like saying, hey, now it's a timing pattern. Not going to blame Ben for that. It's just they were executing the play, but that's something you got to look at and say, hey, man, will that be there later and maybe come back to it?
Yeah.
Because everybody's biting. So he's getting the respect. He only, they struggled this week with the run game for 3 quarters. He only had 33 yards.
Wow.
In the fourth quarter, I don't know what they saw, or if maybe those guys were getting tired, but right away, man, up the middle. Green, Dotson, and Turner were just knocking them loose. It wasn't on the outside run. There wasn't that pitch. They were just running it up the gut. Even Ballage, he had 1 yard. They were just creating holes, and you get this guy a sliver of room, he's going to put you in a 2nd and 5, 3rd and 3 all the time.
Awesome.
And even on his one catch that he made, he just leaped over the defender. I'm like, it was just for another yard.
Yeah.
On a 53-yard field goal,
every yard helps. Wasn't a 54-yard field goal.
It's just wow. He is the center of that offense. They got to, they're still gonna need to see some other guys step up and produce, but just keep banging away, because if there's one thing that these offensive linemen have going for them that we didn't have last year, is that they're young and they'll recover quicker. Yeah, they can just hit the guy in front of them. Nice. They might not have the great technique that Marquise had or Dermani had. Just hit the guys in front of them as hard as you can. And that's where I'm kind of excited to get Zach Banner back. That's a guy who will hit somebody hard.
Yep.
He's a man.
He's a plow. He is a plow. He just knows how to just bulldoze his guy out of the way. I can't wait.
That's what he's built for. He's not quick, but he is big and he's strong, and he'll knock some people around. The question is, who do you go on the other side? Because when you had him on, he even talked about how tough it was for Chuck Okafor to go, prepare for the left tackle all year long, right, and then go to right tackle, and he's like, try to eat with your left hand, try to eat with your opposite hand.
Exactly. Yep.
He recognizes how hard that is, and I think a lot of our fan base doesn't appreciate just how hard that is for Okafor. Yeah, and he takes a lot of brunt of some criticism, and I think he's improved a lot from last year.
And that goes back to something the Steeler fans need to remember for an old tackle of the Steelers. It took a lot of ire from year to year when he'd be a transitional player every year, and that was Max Starks.
Yeah.
He's a player that won a Super Bowl trophy both as a right tackle and as a left tackle. That is what is insane to me. And that's the reason why we kept transitioning him. We didn't want to let him go. And he was so impactful on both sides of the field for us. And to be able to switch yourself from right to left at that high of a level is very rare. And that's why the Steelers, made sure to transition him at least to try to keep him as part of the team.
Didn't find the money for the long term, but it's harder to replace than you think.
It is.
He is not that strong. And when I say strong, I'm saying, relative, I'll say NFL strong. Yeah. He's not a weakling by any means, of course, but by NFL standards, he can get overpowered. Mm-hmm. But he is fleet of foot. Yeah. And he is good on that pitch, and they love to run that pitch. Mm-hmm. It saves Ben the time from having to go out there and do that, extra steps to hand off, puts him in the open field. And they do that pull where Okafor is just hitting smaller guys, a defensive back, and he's just going to crush those guys when he does it. So they didn't really run that against Seattle that I saw, but they were running it up the gut at the end. And Green is I think he's a guy that's going to have his moments this year, up and down. But when he's a hitter, he doesn't like to stop. He wants to hit somebody.
Yeah. I love watching him. He's as quick as Dermody Dawson getting down the field at times. And that's saying a lot. You guys, you Steeler fans that never saw the 80s teams, the bad 80s teams play, Jermaine Dawson was probably the single greatest center we've ever had on a team that's had Hall of Fame center after Hall of Fame center after Hall of Fame center after Hall of Fame center in a row. That
he was the best center of the group.
He was the best.
He was the best.
Nobody was as big, as strong, hit as hard, and was as fast and as athletic as any of those
Nobody could pull out of the position like he could.
Other teams thought that the Steelers were cheating in the run game, the way that he pulled at center and just would decleat those defensive ends. It was just unreal how he just wrecked people.
And if there's one, they had him in 1989, but he's only in his second year, so he wasn't quite to the level he was going to get. So there wasn't that much of a difference in that line in 1989 versus now. It was young. It was John Jackson in his first year starting. You know, we got to see Jackson play great during those years. But, these guys weren't they had Tun Shelkin, who was always an undersized tackle.
Yeah.
God rest his soul.
Carlton Hasselrig also, I believe, on that line, wasn't he?
I don't think yet.
Or was he till later? Okay.
He was later. They were pretty weak outside of those guys, but they found a way to pull together and needed a little luck to get in. Everybody had to lose that they needed to lose, but that game against Houston, it was
the overtime playoff game against Houston, right? 1989.
Move the ball.
Yeah.
Rod Woodson comes to save the day.
Yeah.
Does that remind you of anybody number 90 right now?
TJ Watt. Oh.
For what it's worth, I just everybody who I see all these articles and everything, and TJ Watt, yes, he did save the day, but Minka did cause a fumble there at the end.
Yes, he did.
That could have very well.
Pierre caused
right there, Johnny on the spot. It might not even went to overtime. So Minka's still a baller. Don't forget.
How about Pierre on a sideline route where the entire team knows they're going sideline route at the end, and still he knocked the ball out cleanly. If a Steeler fell on that, they're not even kicking for to tie the game.
Two in a row there, and he's an athlete.
Right.
I'm telling you.
Yeah,
he's raw. He's an athlete,
and that is part of the. Is it Horton that's the the secondaries coach this year? I'm trying to remember who the secondary coach, but his specific focus was to punch the ball as you're tackling the receiver. That is a point of emphasis. You saw it in the preseason. You've seen it all this year so far. Like guys like Pierre doing it, guys like Sutton doing it. Of course, Minka's doing it. But this is something like we've watched Humphreys do for years over there in Baltimore. And balls just go on the ground. If you're punching the football while you're meeting the guy, stuff happens. He did it to Juju in that overtime game, which is the reason why we lost that game. We were driving at the end of that game with a chance to win the field goal in overtime. But that's just, that is what I want to see is the execution of that. Punch while you tackle, get balls on the ground, good things will happen.
So TJ was not the only one doing it. He just it was the one time that it recovered, but they kept after it.
Right.
So give credit, so it doesn't always work, but you keep after it. And it's just like the running game. So that's what I'm saying. These games are going to be ugly wins. Mm-hmm. They're going to be, these turnovers are going to fight with them, but Rod Woodson in 89 and TJ Watt now is not that big a difference, You're talking about one of the greatest of all time, and that even
right. Then. Right. And this is to put this into perspective, Steeler Nation. This is when you're watching the football game and you're expecting Rod Woodson to make the play to win you guys the game.
Yes.
That's exactly. I was expecting that in this game in overtime. They lined up. I said, fumble. Right then, before that play started, I expected TJ Watt to make a play, or I expected Hayward to make a play, or Minka. That's the time of the game where you start. Your defense has to win the game for you, and the defense won the game for us, and especially the highest paid defensive player, the guy that a lot of Steeler Nation may say have overpaid for, but
whoever said that is they're an idiot. I'm sorry, I'm just going to call you out. You're an idiot.
You pay a guy that much money to make sure that because they win you games. Case in point, TJ Watt just won us a game, and that's a mark that goes in the plus column and the win column for a defensive player of the year caliber performance for TJ Watt this year.
That is a game-winning play, exactly. But it was all, 2 pass deflections early on, 2 tackles for loss, another tackle for just 1 yard, 3 passes defense. He does it all. So
yeah, he does.
We're going to need, we need him to stay healthy, of course, too. We need all our core guys to stay healthy. But my point coming here, ugly, just embrace it. Accept it. We're not going to. If you think this offense is bad, and I heard some of the younger guys on the board talking, you remember Joe? Where's the O? Where Joe Walton, they couldn't score a touchdown the first month of the season.
Yep.
Bubby going through 9 touchdown passes the entire year. 1989.
Yep.
So we got, in those playoff games, it was Merrill Hodge, a little Tim Worley, but Merrill Hodge. Remember what he did against the Broncos? They were saying Hodge, Hose, whoever that guy is, he's running all over our ass, man.
Right. He just put his head down and bust the pile open every time.
So, and that was Merrill Hodge. Imagine what this guy was using. This offensive line that begins to gel, and Green's got talent. Turner's a veteran. Dotson's, I think he's going to be a good one.
Yep.
I don't know who we're going to put at who's going to win out left tackle, to be honest with you.
Because when he's 100% healthy, you got to put Banner at right tackle. That's really the only position he can play. So then it's Chooks versus Moore. Yeah.
He can't. He's not going to be quick enough to take on the speed rushers. He is what he is, but he's also vocal on where you have a core 4 who's very soft spoken. I can see Green becoming vocal later in his career, but he's a rookie, Yeah. So Banner's like, hey, everybody comes to my house to have the Marquise Pouncey dinner and talk,
Yep.
He's the one who said, what's Ben doing on the ground? I'm picking you're getting picked up. He's the guy who's going to be vocal about it.
Yeah.
He's comfortable in his skill and who he is.
Right.
And I think, another thing about Chuck's, man, he does seem more comfortable out there than last year.
He does.
So there's a little bit of confidence after, I like Dan Moore. He's probably the guy for the future, more likely than not. But I think Chuck's gives us the best chance to win right now. And let's get Banner out there and just start get power, get running, and get, generate points however they can.
And I think that makes
too many games more by double digits. So just accept the fact it's going to be ugly wins, come from behind, scrappy field goals. That gives up. It's easy to give up points. You're going to give up points, Yeah.
But if they come back like that, like you're saying, we have a healthy Banner, we have a healthy Chooks, and we have a healthy Moore, that makes the entire offensive line better because no matter what, we've got a choice at left tackle between 2 offensive starting caliber NFL tackles.
And a tackle eligible.
Yep. And the tackle eligible has just increased. Yeah. It's a step up on Haig. It's a step up on anybody else we'd have. And that's what we expected Moore to be this year. We expected him to be the swing tackle, but he got thrust into the starting action since Banner went down, and he's done nothing but a great job since then. And I wanted to touch on the injuries, at least moving forward, because we talked about Banner. He was just reactivated. He didn't play in the game, but he was inactive for the game. Expect him to be part of the plan here after the bye. Anthony McFarland must be activated by Monday. He will be activated by Monday. He will be practicing next week. We'll have to see what kind of level of practicing he'll be back. But Steelers need that backup, and he is better than Balaj. He's way better than Snell, and he flat out won that second string spot in training camp last year. Carlos Davis is the only guy that's still been kind of out, but he's working his way back. He was limited all 3 practices the previous week. That's the first time he's been limited and played and practiced all 3 practices since he's been hurt week 1. Look for him to be able to start playing and contributing for the next game, possibly being active. And then Dan Moore was the big injury. We've heard some skepticisms also about I've heard some things saying, yeah, Washington's hurt. No, Washington wasn't hurt, but Washington may have been hurt. It may have limited his snaps. If it is, it's his groin. But Dan Moore definitely got hurt. He hurt either his hip or his back.
Hip.
It depends. ESPN said hip. Back was reported by Steeler Depot. So I'm writing it as both until we get it actually written in ink starting next week for practice, which it will be in ink then. But, you know, I obviously want him to be back.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it is going to be tough to have Chucks go to the other side, but at least he's been in the league and he's started a number of games. So I feel more comfortable with that. Some other people do not. They would like to see Dan Moore there, but I think the injury is going to make it a little easier decision for the coaching staff. But I like the team's chance, especially in the playing against a beat up Browns team after I know that this will go on, and we don't know what the results of the game are going to be until after this post.
Yeah,
but they're hurting. Baker's with his labrum there. Who knows how that's going to affect them all year?
And that's huge,
really hurt.
Dude. They are. You got to keep this in your mind, Bill. They have a starting quarterback with a confirmed torn labrum. And they're allowing him to play in football games because they say, well, it's on the other side. It's not that big of a deal. We're going to do surgery after the season. This is your freaking franchise. You've had 20 years of trying to find a quarterback good enough to get you to the playoffs consistently. And now you're like, he's got a torn labrum. Let him play. There is zero way, if I am a head coach or I am a general manager or owner of an organization, I do not set my freaking quarterback out on the field with a torn labrum in his early years while he's supposed to be your developing franchise quarterback. That's just saying, like, it's a time bomb. He's got to go up against Baltimore twice, against that defense that gets after the quarterback. Then he's got to go up against the Steeler defense, which has consistently gotten after the quarterback better than any other defense in history over the last 5 years. So how do they expect this guy to survive the season, let alone damage it worse? This is just the dumbest approach they can possibly take for a quarterback that needs to be, and he's their face. He's the face of the NFL. He's on every freaking commercial, for God's sakes. My Lord. And I hate watching those damn commercials too. Oh, shucks, me and my stadium.
I'm not a big proponent of them. And I know several Browns fans who aren't either, they're not big on him. Just it is what it is.
Keenum might be their best quarterback.
He might be, I'm going to say flat out right here. I would rather have to play against Baker next week. Chubb is the guy who is bigger concern to me when we play him, and Conklin at tackle. They've got a good offensive line there, but they're playing without both tackles going in tonight.
Right. Both are banged up and questionable. Like I at least knew for the game tonight, Conklin was questionable. Chubb's out. He was already ruled out, so he wasn't playing. I think Hunt's out as well. Hunt's on an injured
IR.
Yeah,
they had the other tackle, Willis.
Yep,
he's
questionable as well. Yep. So, but this was their practice. I mean, he didn't practice Monday or Tuesday, and then was limited Wednesday. And for Jack Conklin, he was the same way. Did not practice, limited. And in the Steelers, when the Steelers have that happen in a three-way split like that, they're not playing, especially on a short week with no rest. They went from game Sunday, practice Monday, practice Tuesday, practice Wednesday, game Thursday. I mean, that's really difficult for a guy that hasn't had a full practice yet to expect them to be ready to go for that game.
If they couldn't go on Sunday and they haven't been able to practice, I think they're going to be able to go in that game and play at a high level. It's going to be, it's not reasonable to expect.
Yeah.
I'm more concerned about how they are when they play us, but of course I want them to lose. The division's going to be tough. Burrow is a player. Baltimore just finds a way to win because they do. They just find a way to win. I mean,
they do.
You talk about winning ugly. I mean, it might have been a pretty statistical game, but a made field goal against the Colts, it's over.
Right.
A 66-yard field goal. Time expired, by the way.
Yep.
For them to win the other game. They're just, they don't have the receivers. They have Staley out. They don't have a running back. It's all on Lamar.
They got a running back. They just signed Le'Veon Bell. He's on the roster now. Le'Veon Bell.
Bell. Okay. You want to see anybody that doesn't get the fact why they didn't sign Bell? Obviously, look what happened. But he had the off season to be ready. He knew he'd be a commodity when somebody was bound to get hurt, and he still wasn't ready to play. He wasn't in game shape, and somebody else was. He was the first free agent running back signed, and he still didn't get in. Off the practice squad for 4 or 5 weeks. It just goes to show that his commitment towards it wasn't there. Even years after us, still wasn't keeping himself ready to like other guys were. Yeah, somebody else is going to take it, and so Le'Veon Bell, don't even bring him up. He's useless. But Lamar is playing outside of his head, outside of his mind. How long can that team keep it up with the challenges they're going to have? And all it's going to take is just one good hit to slow down Lamar. Yeah, really. The guy doesn't have to be out for the year with a torn labrum, but he's a running back. Right. All it's going to take is, and he's got a tendency to let the ball hit the ground too. He did it a couple times earlier this year, fumbled on the goal line. He's got a little reputation.
I thought he was going to. I was at that game. I went to the Baltimore Indy game. My mom's a season ticket holder. My best friend is the best man at his wedding. He's a big Ravens fan. So when he's got extra tickets, he'll bring me out to a game because I live in the Baltimore area. Sure, I'd rather walk out and watch a football game on Monday night as opposed to being at home watching it. It's fun. It's gorgeous weather and everything else. But it was an incredible game to be there and watch. Everybody was kind of resigned that they were lost, to tell you the truth, when they were down by 17 in the fourth. But Jackson did will his team to 2 straight touchdown drives to get them back in that game, getting those 2-point conversions that he had to get those 2-point conversions also, or they wouldn't have been there. There's so many things that had to happen. 2 2-point conversions. The other team had to miss 2 field goals, and it created this situation where they got into overtime and they made a game out of it, and they had all the momentum and they won the game. It was an incredible comeback to watch live. It was. I love football.
I can't take it away from him. The guy played lights out. He really did.
He did.
Can he do that every week? That's asking a lot. Yeah, it really is. You cannot put that. They played a phenomenal game against the Chargers as a team.
That they did.
Who was this team and where'd they come from? They just dominated from start to finish. They're just a winning team.
They are.
The Baltimore Ravens, just like we are. So there's a lot of criticism gets thrown Steelers' way, but they just win. And I don't care if someone will say, "Oh, they just beat Seattle and they played against Geno Smith," and your point, everybody's got injuries, man.
And everybody in 2019 got to play against our 3rd and 4th best quarterbacks because we traded away Dobbs week 1 to get a draft pick. And what happens? Like Rudolph comes in for a lot of games. Duck Hodges comes in for a lot of games. Number 3, number 4.
For you, man.
Number 3 and number 4, and we still had a winning season with both those quarterbacks had winning
500, but we were right. We would have been in the playoffs with an 8. With the expanded playoffs. So something else to think of. There's an extra playoff spot. This team just needs a little bit of a ball bounce their way.
There's only 2 times in Tomlin's entire career, 2 years, that he would have missed the playoffs if they had 7 playoff teams. Only 2. Yeah. That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing.
His mantra is comfortable winning ugly.
Yep.
So like going back to that end of the first half against Denver, that's the game it was when they had the deep in their own territory, run one play, got a penalty, had 2 timeouts. The heck with it. Let's just get off the field with a lead. Don't give them the ball back. Don't let them get the cheap field goal.
Right.
I love what he did, and some other people were like, "Oh, they didn't like it. They were criticizing him." But I'm like, "This is Chuck Noll. This is
Right.
what Chuck Noll will do."
Yep.
This is what he did. That's why I brought up that 49ers game. It's the master class of beating a team better than you.
Right.
I'm telling you, man, if you
eat
for
the
you
clock,
younger
slow down
guys
the
and
game.
gals
Don't
out there,
let them get the quick attack for that West Coast offense. And
Frank Pollard and Walter Abercrombie were not Najee Harris.
no.
Okay? They, God bless Pollard, he ran hard.
Yeah.
But he just, Walter Abercrombie.
Abercrombie to me was like
he
a
went
really
number 12 overall, by the way.
Yeah, I thought he was a really slow Walter Payton. That's the best way that I can describe.
Well, the only thing he had in common with Walter Payton is his first name was Walter.
Yeah.
I won't even go the rest of it. But not if Najee Harris was available in the 1980s, he'd be a top 3 pick, top 5 pick.
He'd be a number 1.
He might even go number 1 overall. It was a different era.
Because that's back when running backs would go number 1 overall. I mean,
at the very least, he'd easily go in the top 10.
Mm-hmm.
The 90s through the 80s, he'd be top 5. On this year, if it was 1990, he'd go top 5 easy.
Yeah.
Blair Thomas goes number 2. He's going number 2.
Right.
So this guy's a beast. He can make plays. It's very special with it. Ben is going to make Ben. You got to let go of what Ben was and look at what Ben is.
Yeah, and then we got to go now. And now it's time for questions from Steeler Nation, where Bill and I are both members for SteelerNation.com football forum. Free to join. Every week, we ask the football forum the questions for the official Steeler Nation podcast, part of the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network, the greatest podcast on the internet, guys. Check them all out. Yinsers are over there as well. Pardon me, and I'm burping a little bit. And so the first question we're taking is going to be from Coolie Man, who we both know as the one of the moderators on the site, but he's a lot of fun once you get past his completely hard exterior, and he's just a cuddly teddy bear. But Coolie Man asked, do you have any delayed reactions to the Seahawk game? I know we've discussed it a bit, winning ugly, close games, relying on defense, relying on the running game to get wins. Anything else outside of that, Bill?
I thought that they were too slow in adapting to when Seattle just started running it. They didn't even, it wasn't Geno Smith bringing it back to them. It was just, they just ran it, all but one play on the first touchdown drive, and then all but 2 plays second. They just started running. They were playing back. They were playing what worked in the first half and worked to perfection. They dominated them in the first half. Seattle changed it up in the second half, and they were slow to changing it back. So they should have recognized that after that first drive and adapted and did what they did in the fourth quarter, bringing more guys up. And instead of playing what they did in the first half that shut them out, they were slow to react to it. And I think that was the biggest problem.
Yeah, and Coolie Man also asked, what should the starting offensive tackles look like when Banner is set to go? I know Bill already said it would be Banner on the right and Chooks on the left with Moore as a swing. I am going to go the other way. I'm going to say Banner on the right. I'm going to say Moore on the left and Chooks as the swing. I think that would actually be our best, just because I am so pleasantly surprised on the way that Moore has done against elite pass rushers on that left tackle side as a rookie. So he still has room to grow. So I think that's a pretty neat one. This one I'm going to direct toward you, Bill. Cooley wants to know, is Hayward the best defensive lineman in the league right now?
I will say this. He's the best defensive lineman I've seen in a Steeler uniform since Joe Green and L.C. Greenwood retired.
Yeah.
And that's saying a lot with Aaron Smith and Vic Casey. But this guy is a freaking he's phenomenal. If he played in the 4-3 defense, he would probably be looking more towards the Hall of Fame. Like, he was on the Giants scheme that played with the great front four they had.
Right.
He'd be over 100 sacks on his career, but we move him around and internally. So he's facing so many double teams and eating up. So he plays that combination, nose tackle, defensive end, pass rush. Right. I would say he's as good as any defensive lineman in the league right now. And that includes Aaron Donald. All due respect, you didn't deserve the defensive player of the year last year over TJ. And Cam is playing at that level. He dominates the line of scrimmage.
And that's what I always call TJ Watt, the 2-time should have been defensive player of the year. But I will state, he should have won it over Robinson too, in my opinion. But I will state that I will still put Aaron Darnold ahead of Hayward currently. But just the way he's playing at a special level, and so is TJ Watt. And perhaps then to be opposite playing at that special level. I would say that too
overall. I'm just saying right now, he's playing as good as anybody in the league.
But yeah, I'm with you. So
especially the inside too, not the edge, but the inside.
Right. And last question from Cooley: how much do bye weeks suck?
I would have given my freaking kidney for a bye week last year. Because I thought that bye week. So they don't suck. They're actually, it's coming right now at a time that we don't really want one. There's probably be a better time to take it. Because we're mostly pretty healthy right now. I'd like to have seen us continue going and had that bye week in the hip pocket down the road.
I'm always a proponent of wanting it late, but when your team is playing like crap and you're on the upside down, you want your bye week as early as possible, and you have a lot of bad injuries. But the Steelers are going to be pretty much as close to 100, as healthy as they're going to be all year coming out of this bye week. But yeah, as far as for what am I going to do this weekend, I'm not even thinking about football this weekend. I might actually go out and do something. I might play disc golf or something. Get out of the house.
Yeah.
Enjoy my week off.
Root against the Browns tonight, and relax. Exactly.
And then, yes,
bye weeks do suck depending upon the year. But last year, come on, Cooley, that you would have loved that bye week at any
time,
right? Everything for us last year.
Yeah. Yep, it did. And Paul G, next person up. Glad you're feeling better, Cope. That's my name over if you're posting on the Steeler Nation Football Forum. I know Bill goes by FSF. But thank you very much. I am feeling better. I've had COVID. If no one's noticed or been on my color cast or my vidcast, I've been in quarantine my entire week, and today's the first day I've actually left my room, so I'm actually down in the podcast room, directly downstairs from the guest room that I'm quarantined in currently. But with all the injuries the Browns have sustained lately, do you think they can reach the playoffs this year? Will they look to move on from Baker Mayfield if they do not reach the playoffs? So this is a good double question.
I think it's a legitimate question.
Yeah.
And I posed it to my friend who's longtime friend, very astute Browns fan. He's very objective. He's not sold on Baker. He does not want to get him paid $40 million a year because this is his exact words, what he said to me today. We're getting a preview of what it'll be like for Baker when he signs that $40 million a year deal.
Yeah.
They won't have that talent around him. They won't be able to play, have a Kareem Hunt and a Nick Chubb, and
a Jadeveon Clowney and a Myles Garrett.
Yeah, they have a lot of guys coming up for their contract next year, so I think they're okay through this year. But yeah, they want to see what Baker Mayfield really does have before they make a decision. One guy who Joe Flacco, quite frankly, Baltimore did not want to pay him the big bucks.
Nope.
And he bet on himself, and he had the best 4-game stretch of his life.
Yeah.
And he parlayed that. But you notice that, from Ben to Breeze to Rodgers to Manning, Rivers didn't win it, get a ring, but Russell Wilson, when they got their big contract, none of them really got that close to the Super Bowl. Rodgers got the closest with several championship appearances, but I think Breeze only had one NFC title game. Ben only had one AFC championship.
Yeah.
It's when you don't have 25% of your cap going to one guy, it's tough to get the rest. And you've got weaknesses. We never were able to get that same defense or secondary around them.
So,
But
but
the
for me,
Ravens had to trade away more,
right?
or excuse me, Brown, because they know they weren't going to keep him.
But yeah, for me, it would definitely be, yes, the Browns can make the playoffs this year. A lot of the question to me would have to be, can Case Keenum get them to the playoffs this year?
I think he can.
That I do too. But then it becomes so that second part of Paul G's. Yeah, the second part of Paul G's question, at least for me, then would be, would they look to move on from Baker Mayfield? If they get there with Case Keenum, they've got to think that might be an option to move on from Baker Mayfield. Doesn't mean that they will, but it is an option.
I think if they get there with Case Keenum, that it doesn't look good for Baker, because the real strength of that team is that offensive line, and you're not going to. Do you really want to pay a guy that you're just not that sure of? Here in Tampa, they did it with Jameis. Only 8 guys were thrown for 5,000 yards, and he's one of them. Mm-hmm. And they still didn't even really consider keeping him.
Yep.
You want to if you're going to make that big investment in the quarterback, you want to feel very sure.
And
that was a no-brainer, but not everybody is. It's a tough thing to do.
Yep. Paul G's next question: does Tomlin and company have a shot at the 7th seed this year? I already said it earlier. I said there's only 2 seasons that Tomlin's ever had where he would not have had a shot at the 7, and not 2019, because they would have made it, like we were just talking about. They would have made it.
By the way, I think they have a shot at the division this year. I don't care. 5-1, 2 games against the Ravens, and they're not exactly. It's going to be tough for them to get through, unscathed too. So
you're right.
I don't think the division's out of the reach. I don't think 10 wins could do it.
Well, beating Cleveland the following week after the bye will go a long way to showing at least where we are in the division, because we can't drop 2 games in the division after losing 1 to Cincy already. Slash Steel comes up, and he's got a question for us. He says, don't slack step that COVID right out the door. What do you think? What do you think of Loudermilk's Seattle performance? I'm a fan of Loudermilk. I mean, I know I've been giving you guys gruff, and you've given me gruff back just because I wouldn't keep answering the same damn question on draft day about Loudermilk, because you guys would ride me. But love the pick, love the player, and he's starting to show already early in his rookie year that he can make those Cam Hayward-esque type plays. He's got a lot more in between his ears that I gave him credit for.
I think the more important, and I'm taking a Chuck Noll approach to it as well. Mm-hmm. Until he's there, he's not. But boy, if they get Stephon Tuitt back for the second half of the season, as good as Cam is, I don't think he can continue at this pace without having his partner in crime there to spell him. And losing Tyson Alulu, really hurt. They had that was a strength. It's kind of become
I'm hoping Carlos Davis can be a part of that team, because he was scheduled to be ahead of Bugs, and Bugs is now starting to show some cracks in his armor. So I'm excited to see what Carlos Davis can do here too, coming back.
Yeah, and they just have to, I think they're experimenting with a lot of guys and moving them around. That's why you see Spillane out there. They're trying to get the feel in case somebody's not ready to go, that somebody's also ready to go right back in. As much as people are critical of Devin Bush, I still think this guy's got a game, and he's just got he's only had 1 full year, but he's got a lot of athleticism.
When he gets healthy, you guys are going to see it. He can play, and he can play downhill, and he can play fast. And that's why Spillane is playing now and even being considered for the dime packages. It's because Bush is not fast enough in his quick twitch right now to be able to play. He's still getting through that groin injury. I wouldn't be surprised to see Bush return to that role when he gets back and he's 100% healthy.
And groins don't exactly heal overnight.
They do not. They take a month.
They can take longer.
Yeah, well, it's a lot tougher when you're still trying to play them.
And when you're trying to play, if you can't rest, they just don't heal.
Right. So next question from Slash Steel is another one on the defensive side too. Is Norwood a future starter? I like what I'm seeing out of him. Yeah, I like what I'm seeing out of him too. But at least this is a good thing to think about, because he was also technically one of our 6 rookie starters this season because he did start in the slot, which he was playing exclusively last game against Seattle, and he had a good game.
He did have a good game.
So if the Steelers are able to get a starter in the 7th round for that slot corner position, all power to it. I love it. Absolutely love it, especially since our last starter, aside from Sutton, when we picked up Mike Hilton was an undrafted rookie free agent that was picked up by New England first. They cut him. He came into our camp, and then we made him the starter a couple weeks later. That was insane. As his meteoric rise was something I'd never seen in a Steeler position. But those of our it's like, it seems like slot corner is kind of weighted like a long snapper or a punter or a kicker. You get them late in the draft. Maybe they'll come in and they'll do something. But that's the way the Steelers have taken that approach to that position.
Well, it's hard to get cornerbacks. The really good ones go quick, and we have not been drafting in the top half of the first round. But if you hadn't noticed, for a long time,
right?
We're averaging around the 24th pick for the last 20 plus years. So,
right.
The year William Jackson III, we wanted him bad. We had to get Artie Burns because he went 1 pick ahead, and he's been a solid cornerback in his career so far. I'm not saying he's Rob Woodson or whatnot. He's been better than a lot of cornerbacks, and it's somebody that we would have loved to have gotten. We had to get him more of a project in Artie, and we don't get those guys that often. That's why you like to see a James Pierre who's got that athleticism, maybe emerge into it. It worked with Ike Taylor. They tried to trade up for Ricardo Coakley the next year. And he was an athlete and a half. It didn't work out for him. I still love that move, though, by the way.
Yeah.
They took a chance to move up to get that athlete.
Right.
Whether it worked or not, you know what? You got to take the shot to when you think you can get a great athlete that you can make some out of, if you believe in it. So I really loved that move, as bad as it did not work out. I loved the aggressiveness of it.
Yeah.
And
well, at least last question here from Slash Steel. This is a fun one. Pretzels with beer cheese. Is it a go or a no-go for you, Bill?
Oh, good Lord.
Beer, I believe that's the soft pretzels with the beer cheese.
Let's put it this way. No, I can't. I got to stop because I can't even get up and down the damn stairs anymore. I'm not quite that strong guy that was signing autographs back in 2008 and bigger than those guys, The older and the weight around the belly. So I gotta take a pass on it.
Okay. Well, I'm still a yay.
On that one. For me, metabolism would not hesitate.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, but the German Stryker is a yay for any type of pretzel. So yes, definitely for the beer pretzels and soft pretzels, and especially during the October.
The doctor doesn't want me to do it. I can tell you that.
Yeah, that's fine. Cooley wants to know if you prefer hard pretzels or soft pretzels. If you have a preference, if you have to eat one.
Soft pretzels.
Okay,
go with them.
Yeah, I when I was a kid, I used to gnaw on those Snyder's hard pretzels for like 15 minutes. But now that I'm older, it's got to be the soft pretzels and then the Bavarian pretzels and all that stuff. That's what I go for. So Diver joins in for the last question of the day that I'm going to direct to you, and it's a long one. It's some reading comprehension here too. So Diver is curious about something that he saw on film against Seattle. When Seattle got into the game after half, they went to the running game, but they attacked the Steelers defense like I have seen other teams do over the years, get the action flowing one way, and then the running back cuts back. My question would be twofold. Why does this seem to work so well against the Steelers defense? And why don't we see similar concepts in the Steelers defense? Why don't we see the Steelers offense do similar concept?
First off, we have done it. We just haven't seen it in the last couple of years because, the offensive play calling has been a little bit more, heavy-handed to throw and bend. But boy, we did see it a lot for a number of years there before Bell left. He was starting to slow down in 2017. If you don't remember, he did not have nearly as good. But yeah, he ate teams alive. It's hard to appreciate it when you're not the team getting beat up. You're just saying, yeah, we got the gain. Yeah, we've done it to teams for many years. So don't think we haven't. I think we have some really great athletes that are right now that, they take the bad angle or they try. I think Minka is one of them. As many tackles as he makes.
He misses.
He does have a little weakness there on making some
does.
open field tackles at times. He takes the wrong angle on it. One of Nelson's touchdowns he gave up against the Titans last year, and it went in the stat sheet against Nelson.
Yeah,
but they hit AJ Brown going across when they were doing our base 3-4.
Yeah,
and we had just the three defensive backs back there, and when he cut across the middle, it was Minka to take the middle away, and he just completely whiffed on the tackle and bam, 75 yards touchdown.
Yep.
So he has a tendency to miss a few tackles. So we got some guys that could do a little bit better job at wrapping them up and taking them down, especially in the secondary where they're not as great at tacklers as we'd like to see. Cam in the first year, Joe Hayden, I love him. He's at the tail end. He won't be back. Hey, if they're not going to sign Woodson at 32 years old, they're not going to sign Hayden at 32 years old. I can tell you that.
Yeah, this is last year. Yeah, unless he's signing real cheap, and it's a small contract, maybe 1 or 2 years that you're still having.
Yeah. I love Hayden, but think about it. He's the best cornerback we've been able to get. It's because the Browns were too stupid and they cut him.
Here's my question for you then. So if we have to get rid of Hayden as a cornerback, would you take him as a safety next year and try to run him with Minka?
Do you think, is he a strong safety? Because most cornerbacks go to free safety, and we're not going to move Minka out of free safety.
Right. Yeah, that's the only issue. It's
not going to happen.
Yeah.
You need to have that tackler. You need to have that guy.
But he is he's one of our best tackling corners. He is a heck of a tackler, but he's probably not a head.
We really want to have a great tackler at that safety, strong safety, if we can.
Yeah, we've let it go neglected with Edmonds for too long.
I think Edmonds has been a very good tackler. He's just not been a playmaker, in the first round. But he's not a bad tackler. He's had over 100 tackles before. Yeah, he is a good tackler. He's not a great player, but he gives what he has. And one thing I will appreciate is as long as the guy gives everything he got, I'm not going to be as hard on him. Yeah. Learn that lesson after meeting some guys that was always hard on Willie Colon.
Yeah.
I screamed at him every week until I got a chance to talk to him. And he was an A+ guy. Learn a little less, man. These guys are human beings doing the best they can. So
yeah, they are.
As long as they're giving everything they got, I'm not going to hate on them if they're not the best player in the league at it. I'm going to hate on the guys that waste their talent.
Right. And Bill, you are giving us the best talent you can of yourself. So thank you very much for joining us on the Steeler Nation podcast right here, part of the DK Pittsburgh Sports Network. And of course, you go over to dkpittsburghsports.com, check out all their great content, including all of these great podcasts as well. And Steeler Nation, you want to follow Bill Washinski, make sure you go over to SteelerNation.com, read his articles, check him out over on YouTube at youtube.com/Steeler Nation. I know he does some film breakdown and some really cool stuff over there as well. So thank you so much for being on the show today, Bill.
My pleasure.
No problem. Steeler Nation, make sure for you iPhone fans, download the Colorcast app because it's a free way for us to talk in a room as a bunch of fun Steeler fans on the Steeler Nation Colorcast every Monday at 7 o'clock. And we're going to start getting some really neat prizes and some neat guests here. So be sure to download that Colorcast app so you can be part of the cast on Mondays at 7 with us for the Steeler Nation Colorcast on 7 p.m. on Mondays. So the vidcast then is for all of Steeler Nation. I take all questions across all of the comment sections for our Twitter, our Facebook, and our YouTube pages. And we jump on the vidcast at 1 p.m. on Tuesdays, immediately following Mike Tomlin's presser, so we can go over all the juicy bits that Mike Tomlin spits out of his mouth the hour prior. Read our great articles at SteelerNation.com. Tweet us at SteelerNation. Instagram us at SteelerNation.com. Follow the Steeler Nation podcast on Twitter at _SN Podcast or Instagram at Steeler Nation Podcast. Follow your host, Steeler Nation Stryker, on Twitter, Instagram, and Colorcast at SN Stryker, spelled with a Y. Thanks for joining us for the SteelNation.com podcast, sponsored by Total Sports Enterprises, part of the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I'm your host, G. Stryker, with Bill Washinski, rooting along with you as always. Go
Here we go.
Steelers!